Welcome to the Real Estate Rundown with Shannon Robnett. Let's talk about what's going on out there. It is the end of the work week. It is Friday. We're wrapping stuff up. I want to challenge you guys to be avid readers. I want to challenge you guys to be avid podcast listeners, not just because of this one, but I want you to look outside of what you know and keep learning. Because if you don't, what I can tell you is that you will fail to evolve, and failing to evolve will be very expensive at some point. You will also limit your ability to identify new trends and take your business in new directions if all you're doing is relying on the information you got at some point 5 years ago or 10 years ago. The other thing that you'll do is you'll fail to see other points of view. I think we're facing a lot of situations in our life right now that it would be awesome to see another point of view. I think that we can all agree that we got blindsided by the COVID thing. We're all trying to figure out what to do with that. There's two sides to the argument. There's two sides to the equation. Everybody's calling everybody the wrong thing instead of trying to figure out what the right thing was, or at least listening to the other person and saying, hey, I hear you. I agree with you, but I disagree with how you're handling it, or I disagree with what you're saying. But the reality is, Jim, John, Becky, Billy, it's okay that you think that. Being able to read and understand is going to be very helpful to coming up with those other thought processes. The other thing is, if you're not expanding your mind and you're not exercising, it's just like any other muscle you got. It's gonna wither up. It's going to deteriorate. But how did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up if you didn't read about it, if you didn't study about it? I want you guys to be looking at this and trying to figure out what you are trying to figure out and how you're trying to deal with it. So if you want some book recommendations, obviously everybody in the multifamily field, anybody in the rental field for real estate has read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Another one that I would recommend would be The Richest Man in Babylon. That's a great one. You know, a short one that's really smart is As a Man Thinketh. It's a little bit older, but it talks about your mindset. You know, there's the classics. There's Think and Grow Rich. I think that you can go on and on about what's out there. There's a lot of stuff out there on syndication. There's a lot of stuff out there on tax benefits. I think if you're going to be in the real estate space, you need to be consuming all kinds of literature on tax advantages, all kinds of literature on new deal structures, on how to do things the right way. I know that today I watched a podcast or a webinar with Bridger Pennington on how to start a fund. These weren't things I would ever thought I would have been paying attention to a year and a half ago, let alone 5 years ago, that I find necessary to have in my life today. Another great one to listen to is the Joe Rogan podcast that was just recorded with Kevin Hart. It comes with a warning label on the language, but you know that with those two characters. It was amazing what I got out of that with what Kevin Hart was proposing, what he was saying, what he was doing. You know, we all think of Kevin Hart as a little short, funny guy, yet he is really intelligent. And I say that like I'm surprised, but most people don't think of comedians as being smart. But then again, you got Joe Rogan. What has that guy been through? 4 or 5 inventions of himself, right? Joe Rogan the fighter, Joe Rogan the UFC guy, Joe Rogan the comedian, right? And now you got Joe Rogan, the guy that just sold his Spotify or his podcast to Spotify for $100 million. How did he get there? He got there interviewing really smart people, absorbing more information, opening his mind to new things, but he didn't get there overnight. He had to practice. He had to put in the effort. He had to do all the things that he had to do to get there, and that caused him to grow. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth isn't something that everybody runs out and goes, hey, let's put myself in an uncomfortable situation so I grow to where it becomes awkwardly painful and we move on past that and we all have a great time. Because awkwardly painful and moving past it never are part of my vocabulary that I want to exercise. But I'm going to tell you, if you will start out small, start out making yourself read 5 pages a day, move into more than that, you will find that everybody that reads a lot wants to read more. Everybody that learns a lot wants to learn more because it takes them in directions that allows their mind to expand and look at that and go, well, what about that? What's next? And so as you're wrapping up your work week and you're thinking about all the things you got done, why don't you take some time to pull out Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week? That's a great one. It talks about things you can do to simplify your life to simplify your cash flow, to realize a lot of things that a lot of people are saying. If you want to feel uplifted all the time, pull out a John Maxwell. It doesn't matter what John Maxwell book you pick up. I think there's 17 or 18 of them. They're all incredibly encouraging, and they're full of insightful information. What I'm encouraging you guys to do is take the weekend, take some downtime, read a book, enjoy yourself, put your feet up. You've earned it. Stop by the Real Estate Rundown for some more tips on how to live a successful life. We'll talk to you guys soon.